When we get a synchronicity, we have an opportunity that there is a profound knocking at the door before us for our spiritual path. What is the deeper underlying oneness that we share? How do we get there? Authorizing the whisper of the hunch.
Welcome to Showing Up with AndyGrammer, the corner of the internet where we show up for what matters most. Today we have Dr. Lisa Miller, a professor at Columbia University and best-selling author of The Awakened Brain. She is a leading scientist on spirituality and mental health and thriving. And I think you're going to really like this episode. This episode is brought to you by Aura Frames. Get $25 off the Carver mat frame at auraframes.com. Promo code Showing Up. Dr. Lisa Miller.
Yes, I'm so happy to be here with you.
I am so glad you're here. Thank you for coming. I have been inhaling your book.
I've been inhaling your music. Sensational, life-giving, joyful.
Oh my gosh.
Affirming, and I would say soulful.
Soulful.
I would say soulful.
You're an expert in an area that I think is pretty brave. I don't know if you would say it that way, but the intersection of science and religion I think is always very interesting. So what would you say spirituality is to you? Let's just start there.
So I could give you a scientist's take on spirituality.
Yes, please.
A scientist's take on spirituality would not be so bold as to define the whole thing, all told, but to say there are threads of our lived human spiritual journey which are game-changing onto the rest of our lives. We can take the lens of science, we can take our measurement instruments and see how life unfolds in an entirely different way when we have a strong spirituality.
When I was reading your book, it was really interesting, the idea that like how much of it is genetic, that it could be like something you could possibly quantify.
We can look at a twin study. We can look at twins who are identical and twins who are only 50%. We can look at twins raised together and twins raised apart.
Yeah.
And based on how much you share of genes and how much you share of environment, we can say, okay, how much of spirituality seems to be passed through the genes versus the environment? And it turns out that our spiritual life is born into us. We are 1/3 innately spiritual, which means we are wired for spirituality. Yeah. But 2/3 formed through our choices in company, formed through our choice of a faith tradition, whatever that may be or not be.
Yeah.
Formed through our relationship with nature, our parents and grandparents.
When I heard that, I was like, the way it hit me was a lot of compassion for that. There's a lot of the environment that does it, but also if you see someone else and you're like, why do they have so much of it? And maybe start to hate on yourself. That there's just a lot of factors. It made me think of compassion when I heard that.
Well, that's so beautiful because everyone is a spiritual being. Nobody's left out. Yeah. And if someone right now doesn't feel particularly spiritual, it's not that you're not born spiritual. It's not that you didn't get that. It's that it is already in you, and you can gently, with love and compassion to yourself, start to figure out, how am I connecting to my higher power? So we're all spiritual beings walking the deeply same spiritual journey.
And now when you talk like this around your science friends, they're cool, they're into it, they're a little standoffish. How does this work in the science community?
Well, there's a history here, and I'll tell you, I've done this for almost 3 decades. This is my life's work. It's what I do every day. Obsessed passionately with understanding our spiritual journey through the lens of science.
Yes.
And when I started in the late 90s, it was quite unfamiliar to the scientific community, and in my world, the clinical science, mental health, wellness community. Yeah. People would literally get up, Andy, and walk out during my talks. Like, what, not my concern, or this is preposterous, or what does this have to do with anything? Yeah. And otherwise, very good scientists who understood how to read peer review, solid, strong science, still somehow couldn't tangle with what it meant. There was nowhere to put it or place it in the mental health field. And this is changing. Why? Because, for so long.
Even I'm on your side, but there's a skeptic in me.
Oh, the skeptics?
Well, I'm like all about everything that you're about. And then also there's like a little 10% skeptic in me that it couldn't be scientific.
So, and it's such a beautiful point. The science is absolutely gold science. It is peer review, which means it goes out through the customary scientific process. 2 or 3 scientists read it blind to who the authors are, meticulously pull at the method, and I have 200 peer review articles in top journals. So the science is solid. And still, there's a human propensity to say, I don't know, right?
Yeah.
The inner skeptic. Inner skeptic. And the skeptic, I would say, is okay. We can have a skeptic. The skeptic is not the bouncer at the door who shuts down spiritual wondering and spiritual inquiry. But the skeptic can have a seat at the table alongside the intuitive and the mystic and the logician and the empiricist.
Yeah, the intuitive and the mystic makes people uncomfortable. Just why?
Why? Well, these are all inborn forms of knowing. We have circuits in our brain for logic and empiricism, and we so too have circuits in our brain for deep intuition, mystical awareness, transcendent knowing. I'd imagine as a musician, you know this well.
Yes.
The muse, the catch in the catcher's mitt.
Yes.
The touch. That is a hardwired process. It is a spiritual process. The artist is a spiritual knower.
It's interesting that it's so easy to give acknowledgement to the other pieces that you're talking about and be like, yeah, I was born 6 feet. I was born slightly athletic in this way. I have a tendency to these things. And then when it gets to intuition or mysticism, it gets a little bit scary to just be like, yeah, that too, I have that. Well, it's not hard for my wife. It's not hard for a lot of different people. And I have experienced so much of it in my life with intuition, and we'll get into it later about what you talk about with synchronicity. But there's always the skeptic seems to have a larger seat at the table in those things than maybe in other areas of my life.
Very interesting. I will ask a group of creatives or people in business, tell me the most important decision you ever made. Was it made narrowly out of the data? Sure, you had to do your research. Who you loved, whether to become a parent, your calling, that tap on the shoulder, hey, this one's yours.
Totally.
Was it narrowly out of research, tactics, strategy, or was there an awakened form of knowing, intuition, a mystical knowing, a deep, deep intuition?
Yeah, I mean, that for me is very clear.
Do you have a decision coming to mind?
Mine, well, sure, for sure my wife, that decision was like a knowing. And then the decision to go into music had to be outside of logic, because what I was doing at the time when I really made that decision, I remember I think it was probably like I was going to school for theater. I'm not a great actor, but I thought maybe let's try this. And I was on the phone with my then girlfriend, and we were talking about like, should I go after music? I think music is my thing. But I wasn't good. My voice wasn't good. And there was just a calling that like, I think I should go in this direction, even though right now there's no real data to show that that would be a good idea or a logical idea.
You felt the calling.
Yes.
You knew.
But I questioned it even at that moment. But I'm an action person, and I took steps and just gave into it. But it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to go with it, and now I feel perfect about it.
Did it feel like a sacred calling that God or your higher power was saying, or did you discern it because you have this wild gift, or how did you sense?
Well, I think it was from I was acting in theater, and then in between shows, just found myself writing in between rehearsals or on stage with my guitar, writing songs. It's hard to even pinpoint around it. It was just a deep sense that like there's something here for you, and you don't know a lot about it. You don't know how it's going to go. You don't have any understanding of what will occur. But it's a gentle pull. It's quiet though.
Yes.
It's not like knock you over the head and grab you.
Yes.
It's like it's a very quiet thing that I had to just keep like listening to the whisper and following.
The whisper of a hunch.
The whisper of a hunch.
Whisper of a hunch.
Even when we say things like that, I go like that. This is scary territory. This feels like, and I love it, and I'm in. But I'm a little skeptical, I think.
Well, so part 2 of the question then is, if the most important decision of your life was made through an awakened form of knowing, intuition, the whisper of a hunch.
Yes.
Maybe something in your prayer or meditation life. You just knew in your deep inner wisdom. Did it steer you right?
Yes. Yes.
Then the proof's in the pudding.
That's
Let
a really great way to go back to it.
Let the skeptic in and say, did it steer you right?
Yeah, did it steer you right? And I've experienced a lot of, you're sitting behind you is the Billy Joel record right there. And when my mom passed, she told me, she asked me for a sign that from wherever she was, she would send. She's like, what's the sign you want? Because I'm pretty clear that I can send you signs from where I am. And so I said, when I think of you, I think of Billy Joel. And so throughout my life, I've heard Billy Joel in like the craziest moments.
Crucial moments?
Super crucial moments where it would be really hard. So intentional it seems that my skeptic just goes like, I don't know, that's too much. And it's happened too many times in a row, and I don't know what to... I'm out. I can't... I won't argue with you anymore.
Yes,
on
right.
that specific point, that's too much, yes.
Yes. So
Yes.
in that sense, the skeptic can even propel the spiritual journey. Because by asking the question, by saying, hey, really? Says the skeptic, really? The power of the spiritual path is so clear and so strong that the skeptic is responded to. And for that moment, you are further along the spiritual path.
Yes. Yeah, I've felt that a bunch. The mom sending me stuff through hearing Billy Joel at pivotal moments of the day my record came out in New York City. I took some time alone. My first record, I'm like in a diner, just like taking in that things are about to change. And then that song, a Billy Joel song came on when I was alone by myself, just eating alone. And I was like, whoa, that's a wild moment to hear that song. When my daughter was about to be born, me and my wife went out for one last thing before she was born, and Uptown Girl came on. And we were both like, wow, that's pretty weird. Over and over and over again, that broke me down to the point to where now I would say the skeptic is far, and I'm fairly reckless with synchronicity. Can you explain synchronicity?
Absolutely. Well, so thank you for sharing those profound moments. Your mother was there in the diner.
Yeah.
So you were not alone.
100%.
Right. And Uptown Girl, you're about to have a daughter.
Yeah.
So your mother's with you, and your mother is knowing, and your mother's funny.
Yeah.
You're about to have your Uptown Girl.
Yeah.
Now, a quick moment from our sponsors, and we'll jump right back in.
I was thinking about this the other day, how some of the most chaotic moments growing up somehow turned into the best stories. Like, I definitely put my mom through it. There were family trips that went completely off the rails, kids melting down, plans falling apart, everything just chaos. And in the moment, you feel like it's a disaster, but now these are the stories that we laugh about the hardest. There's one photo that I always come back to. It's not perfect, nobody's posed, something clearly went wrong, but it's real. And it holds all of it, the stress, the love, the showing up anyway. That's what I love about Aura Frames. It gives those moments a place to actually live, not just the highlight reel, but the messy, beautiful, real-life stuff. You can preload it with photos before it even arrives, add to it anytime, and even include a message so it feels personal right out of the box. It's honestly such a perfect Mother's Day gift because it says, hey, I remember all of it, and it all mattered. Make Mother's Day special with Aura Frames. Named #1 by Wirecutter, you can save on the gifts moms love by visiting auraframes.com. For a limited time, listeners can get $25 off their best-selling Carver matte frame with code SHOWINGUP. That's auraframes.com, promo code SHOWINGUP. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply.
All right, back to the show.
Synchronicity is absolutely central often in the spiritual path. Synchronicity is guiding. God lays before us, or you use your word. My word happens to be God, but whatever your
God.
word for the higher power. Are you okay if I use my word? Which
Please.
is God?
Yeah.
God lays before us synchronicities. Some people call them signs or guidance, but effectively these are events far too unprobabilistic to have happened by chance.
Yes.
Where the meaning is glaringly clear. And yet we don't always know where we're being guided, and we don't know where we're going, like the initial call when you knew you were to be a musician. I mean, clearly you have this wild gift as a musician, but to find that and know that as a young man is a call, right? That guidance gently unfolds before us. When we get a synchronicity, we have an opportunity that there is a profound knocking at the door before us for our spiritual path. Can we cross over the threshold and say yes to that invitation? So synchronicity is not a spectator sport. Synchronicity is an invitation to participate in a guided miracle.
I have experienced that quite a bit. Because of when my mom passed, I think I was fully broken to be open even more to this idea.
Mm-hmm.
And when she passed, the way that I grieved her was by writing songs, kind of like this podcast, where at shows I'd be like, if anybody has anything that's going wrong in their life, I will try to write you a pick-me-up song. And through that process, it was like I opened a trap door into, I don't know, the world became like neon colors. And like every day would be another like little song that I was sending off to someone else, and then I'd get feedback back that was like, oh, before her surgery, she listened to this song and it changed our life. And I just felt so much wider, kind of what you speak to in your book a lot about as well. Then my grief was like turned into all these beautiful little synchronicities that gave me a lot more courage to then take bigger risks to participate in miracles. Like I've tried to describe it. That's what I was saying to you before we started. Where I'm reading a book, and I'm like, oh, yeah, that totally that thing there, that. And anytime that it actually occurs in a way that blows my mind, there's a piece where I have to show up for it.
Yes.
I don't just get to. It rarely does it just go like, oh, that was interesting. That's like kind of interesting. Usually it's like, this would be a little bit weird if I did this right now.
You hear the invitation.
And then I'm like, yeah, and I think it's a skill. Is that?
Yeah, I think we build it.
Can you build a higher antenna to be able to go like, something interesting might be here if I take a step in that direction?
Yes, the more we listen, the more we hear. And I don't mean, additive step by step. I mean 100,000-fold we start to hear and see.
Yes.
So people often say to me, okay, how do I know when there's a synchronicity and if it's real? The first step is to authorize ourselves as knowers. That whisper of a hunch, might that be a synchronicity? How odd that I haven't thought of my ex-boyfriend for 25 years, and today I did, and there's a call.
Yes.
Right? That's far too improbabilistic to have happened by chance. Okay, that's the outward logic. What does your heart say? I know there's meaning in this.
Yeah.
We are knowers as intuitives as well. I know this is real, authorizing ourselves. Then we can start to reflect, okay, how remarkable. I wonder what this means. My father just passed. I wonder, he's calling with a sad tone. I wonder if he's lost his father. What at this moment now is bringing us together? What is the deeper underlying oneness that we share?
Yeah. What was really interesting to hear was the Newtonian way of science.
Yes.
And then the need for quantum physics.
Yes. There was a beautiful study done by a scientist in Hawaii. Her name was Achterhoff. Achterhoff worked in a hospital, very sick people in Hawaii. And what she found was that those people who the medical establishment had almost given up on were often healed by traditional Hawaiian healers. And Achterhoff wanted to know why and how and what's going on. And so she invited both the healer and the patient into the hospital, each in their own MRI machine. So the healer...
Ooh, the healer too.
The healer went into an MRI machine, and then at a distance down the hall, off in another building, the patient was in a second MRI machine. As the healer started to do his or her traditional work, a consistent pattern came up on the MRI machine, tracking blood flow. Within an instant, the same pattern was seen in the patient's MRI at a great distance. One thing, healing consciousness, spirit, in two places, both in and through the healer and in and through the patient. Now, if you ask 100 healers, it won't be 99, it'll be a full 100 who say, I don't make healing consciousness, I don't make spirit, I receive it, I direct it. Healers are aware that they're tapping in or turning over to the higher power, the source of life.
Yeah.
And then directing, facilitating, like an ambassador effectively, the consciousness in and through the patient. What does that have to do with quantum theory? Well, that's superposition, one thing in two places.
Yeah.
And still, there is a healer in his or her own body and the patient in his or her own body, points and at once a unitive whole.
It's really interesting.
And really true. Does it fit with your intuition?
It does. It's just, it's so, do you think it'll take a long time for us to be more open? I would say I have a lot of really spiritual friends that would be interested in what you're saying, and then half of my friends would probably be like, you lost me there. Now, even though you're saying MRI machines and science and all this stuff, it's really interesting.
So, it's interesting because very often people say, I don't know about all that.
Yeah.
But again, when you ask them about the most important decision they've made, was it narrowly out of research and tactic and strategy, or was there a deep knowing, a receptive form of perception, meaning the catch in the catcher's mitt where you are guided, the whisper of a hunch where you just knew in your spiritual heart?
Can you tell us, have you felt this before your duck story?
I'm so grateful you raised the duck story because I am. Because we, if you will, our brain taps into the consciousness field. Our brain taps into the spirit, the fabric of life.
Yeah.
Right? So too all living beings tap into the fabric of life. It's not just we the humans, but many people will readily say, yes, my dog knows I'm coming home before I come around, or I could see in the eyes of, my ferret, my bird, my cat, my dog, they love me. And that's real love. If you put a dog in the MRI machine, the dog has the same neural correlates of love as do we. Love is real, and it's in fellow living beings. So the duck story I share because, well, I'll tell it.
Yes, please.
I share in my book, The Awakened Brain, that my husband and I struggled for 5 years hoping to have children. We'd been married and very young. I was the first kid on the block to get married. We'd met, and we were only 19, so we were ready to go. And we didn't understand why nobody was coming. So my approach had been, as a scientist, I will find the IVF doctors with the best success rate in the country. And I researched away, and I found them. I found the team that invented in vitro beta researcher, right? And still nobody came. And with each non-conception, each non-baby, it felt like a funeral. It was the worst. I mean, we were so depressed. And one day, Andy, I saw my husband. I looked over at night in the bed, and he wasn't in bed. He was on the floor. He was so depressed, just lying on the floor. And I looked over, and he says, our lives are hollow and meaningless without children. And so he'd done everything he'd wanted professionally. I was doing everything I wanted professionally. We had a roof over our head, and it didn't matter.
Yeah.
We just wanted to be a family, right? Yeah. So as this very depressing, difficult road of trials lay before us, we started getting help. This time around, I came home after what I sensed from the very best team in the whole country still would not be as successful in vitro. And as we stepped out of the car up to our front walk, I saw something odd and glossy on the front step of our home, right by the door. So I walked right up, leaning on the front door. I looked down, and on our step, the threshold, was a tiny dead duck embryo.
Yeah.
So here we're coming from an IVF, and there's a dead duck embryo on our front doorstep. I mean, that's
wild.
Let the skeptic chew on that.
Yeah,
right?
Totally.
Okay. And of course, in the years before and years after, there's never been a dead duck embryo, right? It's been 30 years in that house. There's been no other dead duck embryos, right?
Yeah.
So what are the chances, right? Far too unprobabilistic to happen by chance. And we walk in the house, and I'm quite depressed because I know exactly what that means. I mean, that's really a hit over the head. I go into my study, lie down on the couch, and just sort of take a depressing nap because I was so disappointed.
Yeah.
Tick, tick, tick. There's this tapping at the window. Pull back the door, and it's the mom, the mother duck. And looking at her, she's trying to come into my office, cross through the sliding door. As I look closely, she's brought me something. A big, plump, glorious, juicy worm to comfort me, right? Mother duck was aware that just like her, who had lost her little baby dead duck embryo, I too was not a mother. We were in this together. But she was comforting me. She was consoling me. All living beings tap in to the spirit. The mama duck showing up said to me that you are somehow supported by life itself, by this divine world we live in, that God is with you. The duck was one of a series of synchronicities, Andy, one after the next. When we're on our path, doors open that we didn't expect. So yes. I'm sitting on a bus. I'm going up to work hours late because I'm so depressed. There's been another failed in vitro.
Ugh.
So depressing. I'm alone on the bus because it's 11 in the morning. Everyone else has gone to work. in the back row when a very unusual fellow gets on the bus midway and starts walking. And I think, oh, no, he's not really. And he keeps walking. And he doesn't sit down. He walks all the way to the back of the bus, an empty bus, and plops down immediately next to me. And I thought, I'm really going to try to be polite because I'm so depressed and so edgy and so despairing. I take a deep breath, and he starts talking. He says, "You know what, lady?" And I said, "Hello." He said, "You look like just that type of awfully nice lady who would go all around the world adopting kids."
Okay.
That was all he said. There was no warm up. There was no, "How you doing?" Or, all around the world adopting kids.
Yeah.
And Andy, at the next stop, he gets up and gets off the bus. So who is that? That's a trail angel.
Yeah.
And who sent them? I would say central casting, divine source.
Yeah.
These synchronicities, one after the next, are divine guidance, and they're in all of our lives, right? But the question then is, do we note them as remarkably punctuated in our lives, or do we say this is an invitation to then take action? Right?
How can you go, like, how do you discern that?
How do you discern? The more we listen, the more we hear, right? So the more we say, wait a minute, I'm just coming to work 2.5 hours late because I've had a failed in vitro and I'm depressed after now 4 years of infertility. And a fellow on the bus who was perfectly abled, rode a bus for one stop, sat down next to me, which was actually socially inappropriate, right, in an empty bus, and told me that I could go all around the world adopting kids. That is a message from God. There is no other ultimate knowing, ultimate present, ultimate loving source. Yeah. And who's the ambassador? Who's the trail angel? We are. Yeah. We are. So when you feel in a concert compelled, you are being an agent of God. Yeah.
That's the hope.
I listened to these synchronicities, and I decided that this was actually an invitation to adopt a child. So my husband and I went and met with a clergyman's daughter who brings families together, babies, young children from all around the world, to find their home, their true family. We visited her, and she said, "Okay, listen, there you are, Mr. and Mrs. Miller. You've been married now quite a while, looking at us," and said, "What is it you want in a child?" And I said, "Well, I don't care if it's a boy or a girl. I don't care certainly what race the child is, a child who can love." Andy, within a matter of weeks, I got a call. It's been 5 years now, from my dear elder cousin. "Hey, little cuz, it's Big Jane. I know that you do all this science studying spirituality, and I know that you've been looking for your child." She said, "But I think you need to stop studying it and come out here and come to a Lakota healing ceremony with me."
Okay.
So I hop on a plane. I say yes. I get on, go out there. And I'm telling you, Andy, for the first time, after all of these clinics and prods and pokes and all the best doctors who were good people doing what they know how to do, where all the while I had felt I was not in the right place, I finally knew this time I was in the right place. Sitting in the Lakota ceremony in the Inipi, the sweat lodge, the medicine man's wife, is how she spoke of herself, said, "Let us speak of why we've come." So us women in a circle, and the women's Inipi each spoke of why we'd come, till we got to Big Jane. And Big Jane said, "This is my cousin, Little Jane." You're not Dr. Miller. Little Jane. Little Jane is looking for her child, and that is why she's come. I'm wondering if we can help her. And the women looked at me in the eye with such love and clarity and devotion. It was relational spirituality. It was to source and to one another, and said yes. So we made prayers together, and the prayer together was for each individual woman in the circle, and whoosh, the medicine man's wife sent it physically. Andy, you could see it in your mind's eye, the numinous glow up through the top of the Inipi. So here I'd been looking 5 years for our child, and that night a call came. Right? 5 years. That night a call came. "We have found the Miller's child." It was on my machine back in New York, and I'm in South Dakota. It was on the machine that night. And it came from the other side of the world where our child was found. They'd found our son. I knew in my heart that was our spiritual child. I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that through these generous-hearted women, through the prayer, God had found our child. A couple weeks later, the tape comes. I see him. He's from Russia, an orphanage north of St. Petersburg. Pure light, pure love. What does synchronicity have to do with all this? Because the synchronicity was an invitation time and time again to find our beautiful boy, who we named Isaiah, for one world. Mm-hmm. The synchronicity of the duck said it is not through the in vitro, but that you are a mother and that you are loved and you will be a parent. The synchronicity of the man on the bus, just that type of awfully nice lady that would go all around the world adopting children, right? And then Jane calling. I mean, I canceled all my appointments. Little Jane is looking for her child. If I had said no to any synchronicity, my husband and I would not have become parents, and our beautiful boy would have been left in the orphanage.
Yeah.
So synchronicity is life in its deepest, truest, most profound voice, inviting you on your sacred journey. Who would want to ignore that?
Amen.
And if we say yes, how glorious and surprising.
Yes.
What God has in store.
Oh, my goodness.
Do you want to perhaps share a little practice involving synchronicity?
Sure.
Okay. So I invite you, if you'd like.
I'm
An invitation? Good.
Yes.
I figured you might be.
I will show up.
Would you say that most creatives are spiritual?
My definition, the creative process is extremely spiritual. Some people don't see it that way, but I definitely do. And I think they do. I think they are, even if they don't think they are.
What makes it spiritual?
You are playing with the unknown. You're developing skills to play in an area that is then inspiration, especially for songwriters. If you've ever been in a room or done it by yourself where you've written something that is beautiful, powerful, good, beyond what you usually do, there is a sense that there's more gratitude for the process than necessarily you thinking you did it.
Is there a force that comes through you, or a...
Yes. Like in the moment, it's just exciting. It's just like, oh my God, and then that. And you're like pulling it. And then for me, at least, a lot of it is like you get, sometimes the idea just flops in and most of it's done. And then you just do little shavings to make it right. But there's a lot of times in that process where I'm just overcome with gratitude and a part of my life that I can't explain.
That's, I think, why your music's so uplifting. When I listen to your music, head up, that doesn't just feel like lift your head up. It feels like the whole force of life is helping lift your head up.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And you're the messenger.
Totally. That one specifically was written when my mom passed, and I was like trying to pick myself up. And I went home after a long day of street performing, and I wrote that song to myself. And it just came out, and it's so annoying, to be completely honest, because most of the time you spend all day trying to write a song, and the numbers game is that they're not going to be very good, and then every once in a while one just like plops out in 30 minutes, and then it's amazing, and then it's like it shows up for you in a way that's unbelievable.
So is the muse God? Is the muse your mom? Who's the muse?
I do think that me and my mom interact with songwriting somehow, which is wild and I think true. And then I think, to me, songwriting is very much, I've said this a lot, it's almost science in the way that it's like, the analogy I use is that Newton wrote out what gravity was. And when he wrote it out and everybody read it, they're like, yes, wow, me too. All the time, actually, at every moment of my day, gravity. And you nailed it and you got it, and we're all in this together. And there's a collective like, yes, dude, gravity. Oh my God, that was happening the whole time. And we didn't like have a name for it or a thing. And I think that my favorite songs are when someone writes out what gravity is around anything. Joy, grief, sex, life, children. When you hear one of those songs that writes out what that is, you go like, we're all in this together. This is unbelievable. I love it.
The deep truth.
The deep truth. And when you catch that in a room or by yourself, a lot of times I will just cry. And that's the part of the process that is like just for me, where
I call those divine tears.
Divine tears, where you're like, I'm just so grateful to be a part of whatever this is. This is unbelievable. And then you leave that stage and get into like, all right, how are we going to produce it? How are we going to go back into your analytical brain? But the writing stage of music for me is very much, all right, universe, like, let's play. I will also call out like audibly into the universe, and if I feel a vibe coming of something I want to write about, I have no like I'll just be loud in my studio. I'll be like, Louis Armstrong, I need you right now if you're available. And there's not too many people calling on you at this moment. Could you please, whatever your ability is to help me at all, I would like to call on you to help me do this thing.
You know who to call when.
Yes. Or I just try. I'll just like throw darts and see who shows up. Yeah. And I can't say that I could scientifically pinpoint whether they did or not, but my skeptic has been beaten down to the point to where I'm like, I think that's worth it. I think that's worth a shot. Like, let's go. Everybody, who else can help me in this moment, in these moments? Yeah.
Well, our ancestors are with us, and those are your musical ancestors.
Yes.
So maybe try a practice?
Please, let's try.
Okay, good. So I invite you, if you'd like to close your eyes, clear out your inner space.
Okay.
Might take maybe 3 breaths just to open the inner chamber.
If you're listening to this in the car, do it with me.
I invite you to think of a time where you wanted something so much. You wanted that job, that person. That red door was yours. And so you did everything, research, tactics, strategy, to land the red door, A plus B plus C. You got it right. You go for it. You reach for the handle. The red door is yours, but it's stuck. And you can't believe it's stuck because you've A plus B plus C, done everything right. You kick the door, you rattle it, you have no choice. You may be angry, you may be depressed, but only because that red door is stuck. You pivot 50, 80, 100 degrees to see a wide open yellow door. You may have never heard of yellow doors. Yellow doors didn't exist. On the other side of the yellow door is someone more right for you, is a job, a career that makes you feel alive, is a community where you finally belong. The yellow door that has so much to do with who you are and where you are today, that yellow door, it was not what you wanted. It was better, and better for you. Better for you. And as you sit back now and you think of the stuck red door, you see it there, the hairpin turn, taking you to the wide open yellow door. Was there anyone there, a messenger, pointing you towards the yellow door, giving you their own story, information, telling you about the time they were in your shoes? A trail angel pointing you to the wide open yellow door that has everything to do with who you are and where you are today. And finally, as you sit way back, stuck red door, hairpin turn, trail angel, wide open yellow door, how are the most important parts of our lives found? Is it narrowly through tactics and strategy? We have to do our part. But are we ultimately less makers of our path and more discoverers of our journey? Mm-hmm. Where in your road of life is God? Is God in the open yellow door and the stuck red door? Is God in the trail angel, the messenger? And you're being an open system to receive and perceive the deep guidance that is in us, through us, and among us, the sacred presence of the universe, who I call God. Have you been on a spiritual path all along?
It's really sweet.
Have you been?
Yes, I have. Where you took me was in my early 20s, just like really trying to figure out what I had to offer. And at the time, I knew it had something to do with music, but I didn't really know yet. So I wrote all different kinds of songs. And, my version of Pulling on the Red Door would probably be 200 songs, trying to write them like what was out at the moment. I tried writing sexy songs. I tried writing like every kind of song that could be written. I tried to write. Pulling on the Door. And then I was street performing. I did that for 4 years, where I would go out and just sing on the street and try. And then my mom passed. And when you said yellow door, I just started writing songs for people that needed to, that were going through stuff, you know? And that kind of shifted my focus of what my music could be for or why. And I think that really infused the purpose of what I was making music for. Before that, it was some loose idea of like, to be a star, or like, I don't know what, you know? And the other one that came up for me when you said Trail Angels was so sweet. I was like street performing and singing my original songs. And this guy who I think lived out there in Santa Monica, he came walking by. It seemed like he was maybe drunk. And he came by and he walked past me as I was singing. And he said, "You're all right. You don't got hooks, though. Maybe if you spent some time working on actual hooks, then the world would get you." And then he just like left, like a drunk man that passed by. And I remember being like, I need fucking hooks, dude. Like that was, I really needed to hear that in this moment.
A trail angel.
Yeah, and so I remember like taking that a little bit more, and then I went and started studying specific songwriters, and as opposed to just like writing whatever came out. I remember that moment, and then like one of my favorite songwriters, this guy Ryan Tedder, One Republic, who's written for so many people. And I remember after hearing that from, we'll call it a trail angel, I got a little book and I started like the actual mechanics of bars and melodies and why hooks take off. And I would just like, every song that I liked the hook of, I would go study and write very specific notes on why that was happening. That one came up when you were doing that with me.
Well, there is a rhythmicity in your work that is absolutely spiritually awakening. And so I can see where that would come from the discipline of the science with profound inspiration.
Yeah. You kind of need both.
Both. When you sang to Jay.
Yes.
When you sang to Jay, I experienced you as a trail angel for that couple.
Outside of my children and my wife, the sweetest moments of my life are when I have taken a risk socially without knowing the words of what you're talking about before hearing trail angel terminology, is when I have gone like, this, I could look really stupid if I do this, but I'm going to do this because I hear some sort of a whisper.
Yes.
And then being a trail angel for somebody else.
Can you remember a time like that?
So many. I mean, what I'll do at concerts is if a song speaks to a certain thing, you know, I have a song called These Tears, which is all about losing someone. And I will set up, almost architect moments.
The sidewalk of heaven.
Yeah, I'll architect moments to be like, it will be more likely that there's a trail angel moment here, me for somebody else than not, which is fascinating. So it'll be like, all right, before we sing this song, is there anyone in the audience that is missing someone specifically tonight? And then people raise their hands, and then I'll run into the audience and hold out the microphone and say, tell us their name, who are they, why are you missing them? And what happens a lot is it's really like infants or like really young children that the parents are missing. And a lot of times there'll be some synchronicity about like, oh my God, we lost our 1-year-old child, and today was the day that we like cleaned out his room or something like that, you know? And then I'll have the whole audience turn to them and sing to them a song like, You're Gonna Be All Right. And then I didn't do it. I'll just set up a situation for it. And then that family's like, how could today be the day that you chose to sing this to us? And so I'll actually I have one in my book bag of a little kid who passed away at 1.5. I have his photo in my book bag. And playing with it, it's the word play is what shows up for me. I love sea lions because they make you think of play. Yeah. So I try to play with what you speak of in synchronicity or trail angel stuff, like trying to play with this to get that feeling as much as humanly possible, you know? What I think is less hard for our culture to get in on than maybe some of the things we've already talked about is there does seem to be an understanding of mental health. That there maybe could be science. In your lifetime, have you seen that go from that's kind of weird to like now be a part of.
Yes.
Right?
When I published the first set of articles in the late 90s,
Yeah.
it was staggering to discover that a strong spirituality was 80% protective against onset of addiction. We now know 82% protective against completed suicide. There's nothing that science has found to be as important to our mental health and wholeness as a strong spiritual core. You can't talk about a whole person until we start to talk about the spiritual core of the whole person. And again, that's within or without of a specific faith tradition, and it could be of any faith tradition.
Yeah.
But we all are born with a spiritual core as the hub of the wheel. It's the linchpin that holds us together.
Yeah, so understanding how vital that is to your mental health
Yes.
is really interesting. And then you also are an expert on, which I'm selfishly just wanted to, a lot of the people that listen to me are have kids as well. And are there some basic things that you can help us with to make sure that our kid can't make sure to guide? What are the tips and tricks to try to help our children grow up with a spiritual background?
As a parent, do you remember seeing your little newborn daughters? Did they seem like spirit landed?
Yes, 100%.
I remember when our child was born, I could feel almost that whole side of the house felt alive and numinous and bright. There's such a strong spirit in the child. And the child, through the lens of science, is born with the neurocircuitry and the natural way to see life through spiritual eyes. The child, without being ever told or socialized, will perceive, for instance, continuity of consciousness, spirit after death. They know that we live on when our body ends.
Yeah.
The child will perceive that we can know spontaneously, as you knew that someone in the audience of thousands of people was in grief tonight. You knew, direct knowing. The child knows that to be the case. However, children are often socialized by our culture out of their natural spiritual awareness. We as parents are the most important people in their lives at walking the walk and talking the walk of spiritual life. We don't need to be great experts, and we don't need to be of one tradition or another, but when we speak and walk and live our own authentic spiritual life, everything changes for our children. So for instance, if in your family it's prayer, or if it's meditation, if it's, however you might pray in your house, the child learns, okay, the spiritual realm is real. No one at school says it's real. No one when I turn on TV says it's real, but the spiritual realm is real. Why? Because you said so. And you are the truth, the way. You are my parent. The child learns there's a way to God or the higher power, whether your sacred word is Jesus or Hashem or whatever one's understanding is, there's a way there. This is how we pray in our family. This is how we meditate or walk in nature. So the child says, okay, the spiritual reality exists. There's a way to God. In the way that you talk about your life, Dad, there's an understanding, a roadmap of spiritual life. There's values that I don't have to go out and reinvent or cherry pick, get right or wrong. They're derived from my felt heart's relationship to God directly. And then the fourth most important piece is that our family, our parents, our children, the bond that holds us, it is divine. We go to that depth. That's an entirely different experience growing up as a child. We don't have to do, or, this isn't like, make sure that they get an early violin lesson or make sure that you get them off to the SAT tutor. We don't have to do anything. We need to live authentically our spiritual life and bring them in. We need to be an open window, transparency. And when we do, the spiritual core that every child is born from day one, within, becomes strengthened. We literally myelinate the tracks. We pave the highways in the brain so the child can always access a connection to God. This is how we're built. But the parent is an ambassador of God. The parent is a torchbearer.
And then if you're a parent and you're a little bit, the podcast called Showing Up. So I'm always interested in what's the resistance?
Yeah.
Showing up usually has some element in it of, it'd be a little easier to not do that. What's the resistance to being spiritual?
Well, I think that, certainly in the United States, about 40, 50 years ago, the public expression of spiritual life got a pretty big trampoline. We said, take down the Hanukkah menorah, take down the Christmas tree. We don't talk about that in the public square. And we've had a bit of an ice age that really froze our culture. It made us unable to be spiritually conversant. And who held on to the spiritual voice? It was the musicians. It was the artists. The scientists went cold for a long time.
There was a season where the scientists were very religious?
Well, there was a season where the scientists were inspired spiritually. They didn't feel a need to say, oh, we don't have the method yet, therefore spirituality doesn't exist.
Yeah. Okay, so there seems to be letting go of control as a part of this process. Is there any areas of your life where that's harder to do than others?
Sure. Just because I do this every day, I'm no different than anyone else. And I absolutely have had times where the synchronicities are telling me, turn right, turn right, turn right. And I am just dead set on that left turn.
Yes.
Right. So authorizing ourselves to say, okay, there really is a very strong signal here. Everything I think I want is actually an incomplete idea, because everything I think I want, I really want that job, I really want him or her, I really want this red door, I want this. It's based on today and everything that's happened backwards. It's nothing but outdated information, what I want. The synchronicity is God tapping on your shoulder, knocking at the door to say, there's information that has yet to unfold before you. You may have never heard of yellow doors. You didn't know yellow doors existed. There's someone on the other side of the yellow door that's completely unlike anyone you've ever dated. There is a calling for you professionally that is a leap that you never thought you'd take.
Yeah.
There is a way of life that you didn't know you could have, right? A way of being you didn't know you could have. So to get to a yellow door is very rarely about adding things up and making our way as planned. It's very often about kicking and screaming and going places we never thought we wanted to go.
Yes.
Can we do one more practice?
Let's go.
Okay.
Rock and roll.
Beautiful. Okay. This is a practice if someone is wondering, hey,
The last one I realized, I told everybody, if you're driving or in the car, to breathe with me, but don't close your eyes. Stay open. Pull over to the side. Okay, here we go.
This is a pullover.
It's a pullover.
This
Everybody
is a pullover.
Hit pause,
Okay.
pull over. Okay.
Good. Okay. This is a practice that I call hosting counsel, and I always thank the person who taught me, who's the late Dr. Gary Weaver.
Okay.
Okay, and then we'll share it, and then I'll tell you why I thought we. Okay. So I invite you to close your eyes, clear out your inner space, 5 breaths. And I invite you in your inner space to set before you a table. This is your table. And to your table, you may invite anyone, living or deceased, who truly has your best interest in mind. And with them all sitting there, ask them if they love you. Ask them if they love you. And now you may invite your higher self, the part of you that's so much more than anything you might have or not have, anything you may have done or not done, your true eternal higher self, and ask you if you love you. And now finally, you may invite your higher power, whatever your word, however you know your higher power. Invite your higher power and ask if they love you. And now with all of these people sitting here right now, what do they need to share? What do you need to know? What do they need to tell you right now? And when you're ready, I invite you back.
Wow. I have a song called Love Myself. And I thought about that. From my higher self asking me, there's a lot of compassion at that table. And then with God. And what I got was, relax, you're going to be okay. Yeah. Just relax, dude. You got a lot going on. Relax. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. It's going to be okay. Everything's, everything. All of it. So that was really, really nice. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Beautiful. Was there a clear sense that those people are real? I mean, these are transcendent relationships.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yes.
Very, very trusting of what came just now.
Yes. So, I'll share with you, Andy, that in April, my father died, and he and I were so close. My father was an artist. He was a director. So close. And I have talked to him every day.
Yeah.
Every day. And they're not just memories. They're active guidance. And he's opening doors and showing me where to go, And I feel that being here with you now was the guidance of my father. My father was creative. My father, was someone who would have taken the journey of the heart and told it as an artist. And so I felt called when I heard about this extraordinary work you're doing to be with you in a creative way.
What's his name?
Sydney.
Shouting you out, buddy. Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Thanks for sending her here.
Thank
you for forcing her to show up for this podcast.
Well, I was honored to be asked, but I felt honored to be asked, but I felt called because my father's a creative.
What's one thing we can leave everybody with? They're on board with everything you're saying. They're in. How do they start? What's a small thing they can do to show up to their awakened brain more?
The joy is written into life. We don't need to make joy. It's written into life. It's there already. The love is already in life. It's in the next 11 people you see at the diner. The spirit is in all the animals that you see on your way walking through the park. Everything's already there. And so in this moment where I keep hearing a droning narrative about things are so bad and everything's so rough and we have a polycrisis, in my view, we have a monocrisis, and it's a crisis of perception. Can we awaken and see everything, the glory that's already present? I would say God's breath throughout all life is already there. You have everything.
And so the average person listening, you're telling them to look a little wider outside of maybe any doom and gloom, or
authorize your heart. If you feel, there's no reason because something's difficult that we have to feel low. Something can feel, it's okay to feel low. It's okay to have difficult times. But just because there's problems or difficulty going on, we don't need to carry sorrow. We can still, like so many people of deep spiritual life and faith, still feel the joy and the goodness, the godliness written into life. So how do we get there? Authorizing the whisper of the hunch. Authorizing those moments where you can absolutely change the life of a family because you honored the crossing of their 1-year-old child. Knowing yourself as a trail angel just made our lives about 10,000 times more significant. Because people often talk about their relationship to God as one form of relational spirituality. But that's only one of the 3 chairs. And chair number 1 we started was the relational spirituality and the people in our lives.
Yeah.
Our family.
Totally.
On this side and on the other side.
I love that. So the 3 chairs are your relational. I feel very good about that in my own life. Then you have the to yourself.
Yes.
Yeah, that's got some work to do there. And then straight to God, that's a little more complex, but I feel that as well. That's really good for everybody to hear, those 3. You are an absolute delight.
Such amazing. It's
honored
wonderful.
to have you here, and I will. Can I get your phone number? We'll be friends for life.
Absolutely,
okay,
absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Dr. Lisa Miller.
What a joy, Andy! Such an amazing contribution to our world.
Unbelievable.
Thank you so much for listening. My way of showing up each episode is by writing a bespoke song for someone in this community. You have all been sending me incredible voicemails, and I have been weeping ever since this started. So here's this week's song.
Hi, my name is Cindy. My husband Jay is who I'm calling about for showing up for me. He's my biggest cheerleader, and he doesn't care if the world doesn't even see me in some of the things that I'm doing, because he sees me, and he tells me every day how proud he is of me. I'm the luckiest girl on the planet, and I'm grateful. I hope you have a great day, because I know I do, because I'm surrounded by love by my guy who shows up.
Jay, crushing it. All right, Cindy, this is for Jay. Here we go. Turns out the big things are the little things, the way you're always there. Turns out the big things are the little things, just being aware that we all need to be believed in. It's as simple as it seems.
the deepest form of love is when you make someone feel seen. And we see you, Jay, out here making Cindy the luckiest woman alive. We see you, Jay, out here showing up like a number one husband for life. No, love's not complicated, it's as simple as it seems. And the deepest form of love is when you make someone feel seen. And we see you, Jay. We see you, Jay. We see you, Jay. Keep crushing, Jay. Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you so much for showing up for us. If you want to be a part of the community we're building here and you want to support the show, please go follow me, AndyGrammer on YouTube, and Showing Up with Andy on socials. I've invited all of you to leave a voicemail nominating someone who's shown up for you, shown up for their community, or just needs a little pick-me-up, and I will select a voicemail and write a song for every single episode. To leave a voicemail, call 917-540-0849. Thank you so much. I love you all so much. Keep showing up.